Welcome to the Going North podcast, where we will deliver you tips and techniques to advance yourself in anything you decide to do. I'm your host, author, speaker, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman, and every Thursday I will interview authors, especially self-published ones, from various walks of life, who will deliver you some inspiration and information to advance yourself. Be sure to check out my book called Going North on Amazon.com, available in both ebook and paperback. Audiobook coming soon to more ears near you. And let's get on with the show. We have the wonderful Wendy Elover. She is a loan officer and she is an author of the book called My Cape is at the Cleaners, Choosing Happy Over Perfect. Let's welcome Wendy. How you feeling?
Hi there. Thank you so much. I am doing great. Excited to be talking to you today.
Oh, yes. A great day indeed.
Absolutely. Every day is a good day. All a matter of attitude, right?
Oh, yes. That attitude is very important, especially if it's a positive one. So tell us a bit about yourself and how you came across the book title, My Cape is at the Cleaners.
Sure. Well, actually, the book title, My Cape is at the Cleaners, is kind of my realization that maybe I didn't have to be Wonder Woman and didn't have to be Supergirl. And, it only took me 50 years to figure that out. So, I feel like I'm doing pretty good here, But, I've actually, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. So I have had so much fun kind of creating new businesses and having a really good time with it, and been married almost 30 years, got a great husband, got 3 amazing daughters who know how to push all my buttons, but that's because they're just like me. So, I've kind of been rocking through life and doing what I thought was okay and doing fine. And then I sort of came to this realization that maybe there could be more, and maybe I didn't have to be everything to everybody. And I just sort of started to notice that people around me were just struggling so much daily. They were just tired all the time and were just, always feeling this pressure, whether it's outside or inside, that they just had to be it all and do it all. And I've just sort of given myself that permission to maybe not have to be that person anymore. And so, the book is really my message to my girls, and really my message to everybody else that I can possibly touch in my life, to maybe just give themselves a little bit of a break. And so that's kind of how that very quickly came to be.
Sweet. And you mentioned that you're a serial entrepreneur. So what types of businesses have you started?
Sure. So when I tell you what kind of businesses, people usually just kind of shake their head and go, what in the world? But, I've always been a people person. So sales and marketing was always kind of my thing. I grew up fixing appliances with my dad. He had an appliance service business. So I opened an appliance parts store, and I used to teach do-it-yourselfers to fix their washers and their dryers. And I used to work with maintenance. At that point, it was really maintenance men almost exclusively, showing them how to do stuff and working with them. And I've had a marketing company. I did personalized children's books for about 12 or 13 years as part of that was actually part of a program I wanted to start called the MDL Give a Book. And that's a program I've done for about 15 years, where I help, I find sponsors, and we go into Head Start centers and we bring those kids personalized children's books, which is just so much fun. And that's one of my goosebump moments, just to watch these sponsors come in their suits and come in their fancy clothes, and 5 minutes later they're sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor, and they're reading with the kids, and I don't know who has the bigger smiles, them or the kids. But so that's been a lot of fun. My husband and I had a CPA practice for a number of years, and now I'm a loan officer. So it's been quite an interesting journey.
That is interesting indeed, because you go from this young lady who's fixing all of these wash and dries and teaching others to do it, all the way to helping out kids with books. That's almost like a 180.
Somehow it's all connected, though. We've talked about this. I'm a big believer that if we open ourselves up to that universe and, say, hey, I'm excited to kind of live the life I'm supposed to live and help the people I'm supposed to help, it just sort of takes you down these paths and in ways you just sort of never imagined. So it all seems very logical to me in a very illogical way.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So So what trials you had to overcome with, well, just through life and with all the businesses you had to start?
Sure. Well, I think in the early days when I was a very young female in the appliance parts business, one of my biggest challenges was that I was a young female in the appliance parts business because it was really a field that was pretty dominated by middle-aged blue-collar men. And, their concept of what women were going to be of use to them was a little bit different than maybe what has happened in my world since then. But for me, that was actually one of the biggest business lessons I ever learned because it gave me the opportunity to realize that you're not always going to be dealing with people who are exactly like you. And people are typically going to go into any conversation or any meeting or any phone call or anything, interaction with you with some kind of preconceived notion about who you are and what you are and, who you're going to be. And then it's up to you to kind of figure out if you're going to play that role or if you're actually going to be yourself and work your way through it and learn how to do that. And I think, especially in the world we're living in today, being able to interact with people who are different than ourselves is a skill that we could definitely use some more of. So really a huge proponent of trying to get that message out there and, trying to make that happen and kind of live what I preach.
That is wonderful, and that's kind of a big thing these days with authenticity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of us are walking around and looking very successful to the outside world and, maybe even once in a while feeling successful, but also walking around feeling a little bit like a fake and kind of wondering, when is somebody going to find us out? When is somebody going to discover that we're not really who we're acting as though we are, and kind of bringing those things into alignment really changed a lot for me as far as not having to have that stress anymore and just being able to kind of be who I am.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like goes back to the book title. You left the cape at the cleaners. It's like, hey, I gotta relax. I can't be Superwoman all day. That's tiring.
Exactly. And when you ask about what the biggest trial and tribulation or, the biggest challenge for me, I think getting out of my own way. For me, it wasn't because somebody else, I had very supportive parents. I didn't have parents who were telling me, you have to be this, you have to be that. They were very much telling me you can be whatever you want to be, do whatever you want to do. It was really preconceived in my own head. It was the stories, we all have to be careful about the stories we tell, but especially the stories we tell to ourselves, because they impact us and they impact us a lot and on a daily basis and, really, I think affect how we interact with the world. And for me, I would reach a certain level of success or I would have a certain level of confidence of what was going on. And I just sort of stopped myself a lot of the times, and there was a whole lot of reasons for that. But I think that just getting out of my own way and going just kind of be something that was a big deal for me.
Yeah, that is huge because it's something that a lot of us kind of forget at one time and never see at the time is that we sometimes get in our own way and just keep pushing along, and then you realize after a while it's like, hey, wait a second, this isn't what I wanted.
Exactly. And I don't know if you've or your listeners have been exposed to this a lot, but you hear a lot about find your purpose.
Yeah.
As soon as I find my purpose, I'm just going to rock the world. And my answer to that is always, that's awesome. But while you're waiting for your purpose to kind of drop down from heaven, do something, Because I've discovered personally that, your purpose doesn't just sort of arrive one day, but if you're constantly moving forward and, I know you're the going north. I love that whole concept of just, pushing yourself and moving your life forward, bringing others with you, lifting them up along the way. You'll find your purpose, and your purpose might not be the same today as it is in 5 years or 5 years ago, but that's okay because, we're human beings, and I think in a lot of ways we're human becomings. It's always who are you becoming? And I think that's,
like that.
Yeah.
Not human beings, human becomings. Okay.
We're always becoming something. It's just whether you're moving forward and becoming something better or worse. That's the big question, and that's where all the choices come in.
So speaking of becoming, is there any advice you want to give to anyone who's looking to be an author?
Anyone who's looking to be an author? Well, I'd say reach out and find resources for your craft and for whatever you want to do. I mean, I'm maybe a little bit different than the average author who really has a passion for writing and says, I'm just going to write 1,000,000 books. I've always dreamed of writing books. For me, I say, I didn't really decide to write. The writing found me. And so, for me, it was more that this was just something I had to do. And it got to the point where I just couldn't not do it anymore. So it wasn't that I had a dream to write a book. It wasn't that I love writing. In fact, I'm really not a writer. I actually spoke my book into my phone and wrote it into a document that way so that I wouldn't have to sit and look at that scary white piece of paper and, and have that experience of kind of going, okay, now I have to put a whole bunch of words on this page, I'm a speaker. So I spoke and it turned into a book, and that was kind of fun. So, just finding the resources that you need, but mostly just doing it and, finding yourself an accountability partner or many accountability partners. I was actually just having coffee with someone this morning, and we were talking about picking a date when your book is going to come out and then starting to tell people about it. And it is a step that for most of us is incredibly scary, because it's one thing to say, I'm going to write a book and have that in your head and go, yeah, that's going to happen. I'm going to do that. But it's another thing when you start verbalizing it and telling other people, because then they're going to start asking you about it. They're going to ask you, how's it coming? Hey, is it still coming out on such and such a date? What's going on with the book? And you kind of feel like you have to have some answer to that, So that definitely, helped keep me accountable, because I could have very easily, in fact, about 2 weeks before my book came out, I decided not to write it. I was finished. Wow. It was edited. Everything was done. And I woke up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat and went, what was I thinking? I don't want to write this book. I don't want to put this out there. Nobody's handing me $1 million check. Why would I put out every time I ever failed in my life and how I got through to the next failure? What was I thinking? I think that's one of those times when knowing your whys, knowing why you do the things that you do, becomes incredibly important. So for me, one of the reasons was that I had spoken to enough people that made me realize that not everybody that I know in the world and beyond are all exposed to all the positive resources and all of the encouragement that I've been, lucky enough to have around me. And then for me, the other reason was my girls. I have 3 girls, and this was my message to them, my message to say, hey, don't wait till it's 50 years later to figure this stuff out. Learn from what I've done and, then find your own path. Those reasons became stronger than any of my reasons for not moving forward. And, the idea of not moving forward became scarier.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Beautiful indeed. And you did say something that was, a lot of things that are very, very powerful, is that you spoke your book into existence. It's almost like on day 30, and Wendy said, let there be a book. And there was a book.
Yeah. Well, it was more like on day 30, Wendy said, oh my gosh, is there ever going to be a book? And then the universe said, yes, keep on going. And then all the people around me said, yes, keep on going, because we're ready to support you, and we're looking to buy this book and read all about it. So, having that support is really incredible.
Yep. And the other thing was, it was the why, and you I think you could actually already mentioned it, is that your girls, it's like, hey, I'm going to leave this, almost this blueprint of this message, like, hey, this is what mommy did even before you're born, and you don't have to always just be this. You can do this instead. Right.
Well, I think for me, that was one of the hugest things. But then on the other side of it, which was even a little bit more important to me about my girls, was that they had watched me. They had heard me say I was going to write a book. They had watched me during the process. They had seen the struggles I went through. They had seen the excitement when things actually started to come together. To suddenly say, well, I had this goal. I was going to take $500 in 1 year and I was going to write a book. And then at the end of that year to say, yeah, you know what? It's just too hard. I'm not doing it anymore. What kind of message does that send to them? And how would I ever have any credibility as a parent? I mean, as a parent, we struggle anyway for credibility, But I mean, how am I ever, if my girls are doing something and they're questioning whether they're going to continue or whether they're going to quit, how am I ever going to have any credibility if they can look back and go, well, Mom, you had a huge thing that you were going to do, and you just dropped it because you didn't feel like doing it anymore.
Oh, man, that would have been hard.
Yeah. So, sometimes you need that accountability. I think it's a huge thing, whether it's inside or outside, but the things that just keep you reminding you of why you're doing the things you do. And if you don't have a strong enough reason to remind you, then maybe you don't need to do it. But if the reasons are strong enough, the whys are strong enough, the decisions get much, much easier. And I have definitely found that as I've been moving forward.
So, speaking of writing your book, have there been any books that you've read in your life that have inspired you, or just an all-time favorite that you would recommend to others?
Oh, wow. There's lots of books. I listen a lot of times to the books, so Audible is a big friend of mine. But there's so many amazing. I mean, I'm really into personal development, so I definitely listen to a lot of that, along with a lot of things about becoming a better loan officer. So those are all things that kind of resonate for me. I mean, one of the books, Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, that has been a book that not only has changed my attitude about things, my attitude about mornings, and about the way that I kind of look at each day and approach each morning and each night, but I've also, by sharing that book with other people, I've seen the impact everywhere from my oldest daughter, who there's a version that's Miracle Morning for college students, up through very specific versions that are for different people, but they're really all the same basic message. It's a message of starting your day with intention, because most of us, we wake up in the morning and we have to jump and do something. We have to be somewhere. We have to help somebody. We have to, we're required to do something, and that's why we're up. And it's the idea, the general idea, an overall idea of waking up on your own terms and setting your intention for the day. Now, there's some very specific ideas in the book, and I think they're awesome. And I think Hal Elrod has just been an amazing influence for me and for thousands and millions of other people around the world. But no matter whether you take those exact steps or not, the idea of starting your day with intention and taking it, whether it's a minute, whether it's an hour, taking some time to know this is the attitude I'm going to have today. This is the way I'm going to present myself to the world, and this is how I'm going to matter in the world today.
That is a great book. Actually, picked it up a couple years ago, and it is really great. And not to mention, it's a nice short read too. I think it's about 140 pages.
Absolutely, which is also always a plus for me because being a busy mom and a working mom, and got to find things that don't stress me out with the idea that I got to read 8,000 chapters before I go to bed. So,
And plus, it just helps you to start the day off with intention besides just hitting that snooze button.
Absolutely. And there's that idea that when you hit that snooze button, I mean, this is straight from Hal Elrod, but, it's like I've been given a new day. No, thank you. Boom. I'm hitting the snooze button. Well, I am never going to say no, thank you. My eyes open again. I'm going to rock that day every way that I can and, make as much of a positive impact as I can, even on the harder days.
Oh, yes. Some days are harder than boulders.
Absolutely. And that's the big thing is, when people first saw the title Choosing Happy Over Perfect, they were going, oh, it's going to be one of those like butterflies and rainbows and everything. And I'm like, my life is not rainbows and butterflies by any means. There are days that are rough and tough, but the bottom line is that, the circumstances that happen, they happen. And the way we decide to handle those circumstances, I mean, I call myself all the time a work in process. I have not figured this whole thing out. I do not have it all figured out. And I don't wake up every morning with, little animals dancing around me and going, oh, let me see what I'm going to do today. There's some mornings I want to roll over. Believe me, when my kids had to be at soccer practice this morning, all I wanted to do was sleep another few minutes. But it is what it is, and so I've got to start my day off and find a way to rock it through.
Yeah, it's true. You just got to fight the pain.
Absolutely. Well, I know you're a big music person, but for me, I found something that was really kind of neat is I'm a big believer in vision boards, and I don't know if you've ever had an experience with vision boards or not, but the idea that you would very intentionally find some pictures and words that represent the things that you're trying to become and that you want to bring into your life. And then you actually focus on them. I mean, not just making a vision board, because if you make it and you stick it in a drawer, never really going to do anything, and then you'll find people going, yeah, that vision board stuff, it doesn't work. Well, absolutely. In your drawer, it will not work, But I recently came across the idea of also making a music vision board.
Ooh, I love this. Where's
Yeah. So this is the idea of the things that you're trying to manifest into your life, the things you want to bring more into your life. Find music that represents them. And I mean, sometimes it can be really very solid, like, you want a trip to California. Well, then there's a song that has the words California in it. You go, okay, we're going to do that. Sometimes it's something more abstract where, for me, I want to bring an impact into the world. I want to bring more love and more acceptance, through the things that I do and have people be able to accept themselves. So for me, Andy Grammer, Give Love, that song just resonates with me. It's a positive song. It's an upbeat song. I love some of the little spots in it. There's things about my mother was a sunshine soldier. I just love that term. I would love to be known as a sunshine soldier, but later on. I mean, it's kind of corny, but I don't care. I love that concept, and it's upbeat, and it fills me. It fills my soul with just the right attitude. Then there's silly song. I mean, Pharrell's Happy.
Yeah, that was huge.
How can you not start bouncing up and down or doing some kind of silly dance moves and, grabbing a brush and starting to sing into it or something? I mean, everybody's got their own thing, but, there's just some songs that just kind of, speak to you. So I've kind of incorporated that into my morning too, is doing my musical vision board.
I'm about to add that to my repertoire and see how that works. That is awesome.
Yeah, and it's something easy. If you're in the car in the morning, you can listen to it, or you're taking a walk, you can stick it in your earphones.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So if you were 25 in the current year of 2017, what advice would you give to yourself?
Run. No. No. What advice would I give? This is probably going to make me sound so old, and I hate to even say this, but look up from your phone. That would be my biggest piece of advice. I think that, that a lot of the 20-ish generation, they're getting a really bad rap. I think that they're being pegged as, the millennials and this sort of stereotypical thing. I think this generation has an unbelievable capacity to make incredible things happen. I mean, the brains that are coming forth into the world, and activism and the compassion that people have for people. I think the only thing that's missing is that a lot of times, because it's such an amazing technological time for that generation, is they just forget to look up, and they forget that there's that human interaction. And I think that little piece added to the puzzle, that 25-year-olds are just, they're just blooming. I mean, it's going to be an amazing, amazing future if they could just look up from their phones and talk to each other occasionally. I mean, I've learned to text. I Snapchat if I have to, but I'm really, really bad at it. I'll Skype. I'll do all those things, but there's just at the core of all of that, a human interaction. And I don't know how many times between an email or a text, people have gotten really upset, and it's all because we don't hear a tone. We don't know what the thought behind it is. So there still are occasions where talking on the phone or talking in person are just a little bit of a lost skill that I think we need to bring back a little bit, to bring that humankind a little bit back.
I agree with that fully, because it's like, folks, you sometimes see things about the zombie apocalypse, like to joke around people and be like, hey, it's already here.
Right.
Folks are glued into their phones like zombies, and if they don't have Wi-Fi, they'll go crazy.
Well, and I have to confess, I am just as guilty. So, I mean, this is not something that I'm pegging just on younger people, because I find myself, scanning through and doing things, and I'm like, what am I even doing? Like, I don't even need to be, why am I looking at this? This is nothing I need to be looking at. We're just, we've gotten to the point where we can't even go to the bathroom anymore without taking a phone to keep us entertained, I mean, I'll find myself in the local, like, Paneras and waiting for my food. What is it? Maybe 2 minutes that you're going to stand there, and I find myself grabbing for my phone. I'm going, why am I even doing this? There is nothing that urgent that I need to look at, and meanwhile, there's 10 different people standing around me that I could maybe learn something from, or just, share a smile with, but, it's just so easy. So I certainly don't exclude myself from that problem.
Oh, yes, because the phone has so much.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, all right. So what can we do to get in contact with you and help you out on the social media handles? Or where can we find the wonderful Wendy?
Sure. Well, one thing we haven't really talked about is I do actually help create happy new homeowners all day long. So that's something that I'm really passionate about doing. So I do have a Facebook page that's Wendy Elover, Loan Officer at Academy Mortgage. And then I also have a Facebook page that's a Wendy Elover Speaker, Author, and Work in Progress. But pretty much if you just go onto any Google or social media and you type Wendy Elover, and my name is actually not exactly how it sounds, so it's E and then the word lover. So if you type Wendy and then E, lover, you will only find me. And if you find any other Elover, it's probably my brother-in-law or sister-in-law, and they can shoot you in my direction. So, and then if anybody, wants to reach out by email or wants to connect with me, wendy@wendyelover.com. Try to keep it real simple for them.
Well, there you have it, folks. You can get you in a nice brand new home with a nice fancy new book to boot.
There you go. Absolutely.
Well, all right. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate spending some time with you, and I hope you have a great day.
Woohoo! Thanks a bunch for your tuning ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Be sure to, once again, check out my book, Going North, on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. And if you'd like, feel free to follow me on social media at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all at Dom Brightman, YouTube at Dom Brightman. And if you want to connect on LinkedIn as well, I am there at Dom Brightman as well. Go out there and make the rest of your week the best.